There's finally college football this week. The Week 0 matchups are coming this Saturday, but we're here to talk about the number 5 team in the country that's playing on September 3rd. I'm your host, Pierson Luscy, and we're back with another episode of the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast brought to you by Pawpaws, Campers, and Cars. The heat of college football is fast approaching, and so is Florida State, but LSU football had a scrimmage over the weekend. We're going to keep you up to date on the biggest storylines and the scrimmage that happened over the weekend. We have some LSU baseball recruiting news along with an update about cornerback Denver Harris, Sage Ryan's injury scare, and who stepped up in his absence, along with more from the man who was there, Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne, joining the show once again. LSU's schedule has the team going to both Starkville and Oxford, Mississippi in the span of 3 weeks. And if you don't want to make the trip back to Baton Rouge because of the drive, we have something for you. Pawpaws, Campers, and Cars has RVs, tractor trailers, and many other vehicles to choose from to help on your travel needs. If you need more information, go to pawpawsrvs.com or call them at 1-800-728-CAMP. Once again, that's 1-800-728-CAMP. That's a good RV, Pawpaw.
Hey neighbors, we're not that far from where you are. Make that short drive to Pawpaws Campers in Picayune and see our Wildwood, Catalina, Sportsman, and Zinger trailer lines and our Rockwood and Heritage Glen fifth wheel lines. From Houma to Hammond, Biloxi to Jackson, and Mobile and Pensacola, we're not that far from where you are. Come and see us.
You're gonna love the way we deal. Pawpaws Campers City and Picayune. You're gonna love the way we deal.
Quick news on LSU baseball. Coach Jay Johnson spoke to the media on Monday, coming out off of their national championship, their number 7 for LSU, and they're reloading for another run to Omaha. TigerRag.com has the latest news on the team that is joining in 2024. But there's one name that I think we need to point out. Cameron Johnson, a left-handed pitcher from Maryland, Maryland's IMG Academy. He was ranked the number 2 left-handed pitcher and the number 11 overall recruit and drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals in the 20th round. He's also the number 42 prospect in 2023's MLB pipeline, and so you won't want to miss all things that we have covered for LSU baseball. Shifting gears to football, no practice on Monday for the start because of the start of fall practices, but we have Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne here with us once again, and so you made it through the 6 practices in a row and through the heat. How does it feel to finally be back? And is it football season yet?
It's not quite football season yet, but it's certainly taking on the, I guess you would call it the tenor of football season, especially now at LSU as they really begin to hone in with their game planning. And, there's a shift occurring in fall practice now as of yesterday.
And what was that shift that
They're going to be focusing more on Florida State. They're going to be finalizing their depth charts moving in. I think the scrimmage on Saturday, even though it was shorter than we anticipated, shorter than Kelly had told us it was going to be. Coach Kelly had told us that it was going to be between 60 and 70 plays. Instead, what we were treated to was a typical practice, typical fall practice with about 20 sessions, and then they went into a 43-play scrimmage, 5 sessions of scrimmage.
So it was a shorter practice or a shorter scrimmage. What was your initial thoughts on what you saw, just overall?
I thought Jaden Daniels looked solid. He completed, I think, 7 of his 11 passes. I'm doing all this from memory. I don't have anything in front of me. For about 60 yards passing. He did throw a touchdown pass. Garrett Nussmeier also looked good. So the quarterback situation is what it is, and it's very solid. We've known that all along. Obviously, Caleb Jackson, the freshman running back, had 2 touchdowns, one about a 20-yard run, I think it was 18, for a touchdown, and then he reeled in a screen pass from Garrett Nussmeier and busted it open for a 75-yard streak down the sideline for a touchdown, and that was really exciting. And the other biggest thing that stood out from the scrimmage was the fact that Deuce Chestnut, the transfer from Syracuse at cornerback, did not start or was not starting with the first unit, which surprised me. Zy Alexander was, but Sage Ryan was the number 1 corner in place of Deuce Chestnut. Chestnut did, of course, play, And of course, Sage Ryan did sustain an injury, which we'll find out more about that injury today when Coach Kelly addresses the media at 5:30 this afternoon.
So about the cornerback unit, what was Denver Harris there? We've been big storyline.
Denver
on
Harris,
that.
a very, very good question. Denver Harris, as you know, who was absent from the team picture and then missed 3 practices for an undisclosed reason. Kelly termed it personal matters that he had to deal with and said he expected him to be back on Saturday, potentially, and he was back. Denver was operating primarily with the 3rd team, as is the case. But he has elite skills, elite talent. He's a 5-star recruit, and transfer from Texas A&M. He provides much needed depth, and I expect him to make some headway throughout the early part of the season, and probably will get significant playing time moving forward. Right now, he's not slated for significant playing time, but LSU does need some cornerbacks.
So you mentioned the injury about the running back Sage Ryan.
No, cornerback. Sage Ryan.
Oh, cornerback Sage Ryan. What was the situation with him?
Let's say there was a play where he, and I can't remember who he was tackling. I want to say it was, now I better not say because I don't remember and I don't have my notes in front of me, but he made a tackle on the far sideline from the press box where we were seated, and he ended up staying on the ground. Looked like he had sustained it looked like a pretty serious left shoulder injury, but from what I understand, and again, this is not official, but I understand it was just a stinger, although he did stay on the ground for about 4 minutes.
Would you be surprised if he was out for significant time?
I don't think he will. From what I'm hearing right now that it was just a stinger and that he should be fine. So I will find out more this afternoon.
Can you talk about a little bit more about who stepped up in Sage Ryan's absence?
Well, Deuce Chestnut was back in, then operating with the first team after that. And of course, Ashton Stamps and Terrence Welch were the 2 second-team corners. The way LSU ran the scrimmage was 1 against 1, 2 against 2, then 1 against 1 and 2 against 2, and then the 3rd team went in. So they had 5 sessions.
One more thing on injuries. Mason Smith had that injury, I think it was a week ago, and
last
Saturday, yeah, and
a week ago Saturday, just to be clear.
So it's been a bit though. Is he back in that starting defensive tackle role?
No, good question. Mason Smith did not participate at all in hardly any drills during the normal practice session on Saturday. He spent most of his time on the exercise bikes in the end zone. And did not participate in the scrimmage. So that'll be another question today. He was dressed out, but he did not participate.
Okay, so I feel like we're done with the injuries. Let's go to the actual performance. Caleb Jackson had performance of the day. What was he just looking? Offense just catered to him, or was he just playing well?
He was getting increased playing time because, again, Josh Williams, Diggs, Armani Goodwin were not participating. They were also on the sidelines, so they did not participate. So that afforded Caleb Jackson more playing time. Caleb Jackson obviously took advantage of it. He has significant speed. I think he was clocked on the 75-yard touchdown run at 21.4 miles per hour, which is moving down the sideline. He's obviously a kid with big size, and good speed. And there's a lot of excitement that he's generated right now. You can check out the article on TigerRag.com that William Weathers wrote about his performance if you want more information on that.
On the quarterback side, Daniels and Nussmeier both played. Were they both playing with the ones, or was it ones and twos, or how did that go?
Garrett Nussmeier played with the twos. Jaden Daniels was with the ones exclusively.
And he was catching, he was throwing the ball to players like Mason Taylor, but you mentioned in the last podcast that you thought that Pimpton would be a really big presence. Was he at practice?
He was not at the first part of practice. He wasn't. I was looking for him. I couldn't find him, but he did show up towards the later parts of practice, was dressed but did not participate. And I assume that's for some nagging injury reason, but we don't have any details on that right now.
Defensive backs, LSU has a lot to choose from. Can you go into where everyone was playing and who was?
Well, like I said, Sage Ryan was a surprise starter to me at cornerback because during practice up to this point, the ones that we were allowed in, which was most of them, the media that was allowed in, Sage Ryan had only towards the latter part of last week started taking some reps at cornerback. I expected Deuce Chestnut to start. He's had a good camp coming off an injury in the spring. He's again the transfer from Syracuse. And of course, Zy Alexander. Zy Alexander stood out. He had a good tackle, forced a fumble, I believe from Chris Hilton on a reception. And I might be mistaken on that, but I believe it was from Chris Hilton. And also had a pass breakup. Andre Sam, transfer safety, also had a pass breakup.
So, from my understanding, I heard that Greg Brooks Jr. was playing in the slot. Can you talk about his performance?
Well, as we've talked about with the safeties, Greg Brooks Jr. played in the box and in the slot. He also played at his regular safety position. So they're continuing to interchange the roles of the safeties. So Brooks had a very solid performance across the board.
Okay, we've talked a lot about Aaron Anderson throughout the course of fall practice. How did he look? How did he play?
So Aaron Anderson did extremely well, especially in the pre-scrimmage sessions of practice. He put a very good move at one point and scored a touchdown during 5-on-5 or 7-on-7 drills. In the scrimmage, he had limited visibility. He was playing with primarily the second team, as LSU's starting receivers on the number 1 team were, of course, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, and Kyron Lacey.
Was he doing any concepts with the ones on the offense?
I think he, if I'm not mistaken, he ran a couple plays, but he was not, I don't recall him actually touching the ball when running with the ones. Again, it was only a 43-play scrimmage total, 5 sessions, which included the third team having 1 session. So it was very limited, and I attribute that to why he didn't get more action.
How did the offensive line look? Did they have their roles or?
Yeah, it was your normal offensive line. That's one of the stable parts of LSU's offense going into this year. We had freshman Zalance Hurd, who went to high school with Will Campbell, who's starting at left tackle, did play some significant time or some significant reps with the number 1 offense at right tackle, which moved Emory Jones to right guard during those reps. So that was the most interesting thing. It looks like Zalance Hurd is making some progress towards possibly earning a starting role. I personally don't think that we will see him start at right tackle against Florida State, although that certainly he's making progress. I think he'll begin to get reps at that. He's obviously a force to be reckoned with.
With all the talent at offensive line, do you anticipate that there's maybe some sets with more than 5?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Do you think there's more, some formations where there's 6 linemen or possibly more?
I think there will be some unbalanced lines in LSU's future, especially whenever they get into short yardage situations. LSU is going to be a very physical running team. Not that they're not. I shouldn't say they're going to be a running team because people will misunderstand that. They're going to be able to run the ball very physically and very effectively. And in short yardage situations, I would definitely expect them to have an unbalanced line at times with 6 offensive linemen.
And so I got one last question. Special teams, how did that look?
So Aaron Anderson was returning punts, and also Damian Barros, the place kicker, kicked a 47-yard field goal that was good. And Dilbert, sorry, so many names, and I have no notes in front of me. So Dilbert then missed the one at 47 right after that. Those were the biggest things that stood out to me.
And it was Was Javen Nichols and Jalen Brown, were they taking kickoffs as well with Anderson?
They were, but they were taking less kickoffs, and they were second and third.
Okay. Well, Kelly will be speaking again later on Tuesday, and so we'll bring you updates on that on TigerRag.com. We're going to take a quick break, but before we go, if you haven't already checked out Pawpaw's Campers and Cars and RVs, make sure to go to pawpawsrvs.com or call them at 1-800-728-CAMP. And once again, we'd like to thank Pawpaw's Campers and Cars for sponsoring the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast, and we're happy you could join us again for another episode.
People come from everywhere to Pawpaw's Campers and Cars.
Only Pawpaw's Campers and Shit is somewhere. Pawpaw's Campers and Cars are people. And we're going to let it go for I forgot. Take the whole family over to Picayune. We got something for you. All right. What else we going to say? PawpawsNicePrice.com. That's probably all we need to say.
We're in striking distance from game week, but we still have a little ways away. But the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast will keep you covered on the latest news with all things LSU Tigers. We'll have more very soon because Coach Kelly will be speaking to the media later on Tuesday and will be answering questions. And not only will he have updates from him, but we'll also have projected starting lineups for LSU that you won't want to miss. Make sure to stay tuned for another podcast, and thank you everyone for listening, and we'll be back later this week.